Welcome to the Bob Priest Show of Life podcast. I'm your host, Bob Priest. Thanks for tuning in today's show. This podcast is dedicated to individuals and professionals who desire to learn more about the subject of health and wellness, as well as alternative technologies to better health and vitality. Let's get started. Good morning and welcome to the Bob Priest Show of Life podcast. I'm your host, Bob Priest. Thanks for tuning in to today's show. Today, my guest is Lynn Marie, certified life and health coach and owner of Lynn Marie's House of Sharma. Can you tell me what the word Sharma means, Lynn? I found that interesting.
My pleasure, Bob. Thank you for having me and for this opportunity. I just adore you for this. So Shama in Hebrew means to hear. I'm very good I've trained myself to actually be able to listen. Instead of listening to respond, I listen to actually hear where you're blocked.
Good point there. I was reading your bio a little bit, and of course, in our many conversations over the past month or so, after meeting you on LinkedIn, you've got a pretty good history of things that you've done in life. You've been a 35-year licensed cosmetologist, coach, friend, sister, mother. I love those. I like the way that you include those as part of life. You've loved making everyone feel and look their best throughout your career as a hairstylist. You've been president of the Portland Chamber of Commerce and been involved in local government and nonprofit organizations. So it sounds like you've had a pretty full life at this point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love to help people because everybody's struggling right now. So it's so important to get out there. And how else do you build rapport? You can't do it by sitting in the house. You have to get out there and learn, meet people and learn what it's all about.
I agree. So, after all these years of being in cosmetology and making people beautiful, which you could sure help me out, I'm sure. What changed around in your life that you decided you wanted to become a certified life and health coach?
Well, like with many businesses through COVID, I got shut down. I was working in my basement after many years of working around Lansing and in Portland, and then I decided to go home, and so I wouldn't have to worry about ever losing a job. And COVID hit, and I got shut down. And during that time, I thought, why not? There's no better time than right now than to go back to school and learn the tools to actually help people move through what it is that they need to move through. So I started, and 6 months later, I was through it and done.
Well, that's awesome.
I was determined, so determined.
Didn't have much choice when you had to be stuck in the house for all that time.
Right.
In our conversations, I learned that you went through your own medical challenge at some point. Can you kind of tell us that story a little bit and then how that perpetuated you to move in some new directions?
Sure. It's always been, I guess, pretty much my whole life, Bob. I've always had issues with Western medicine. I've always tried to find natural ways to help myself move along, and I'm very good at listening to my body, which everybody needs to tune into more, because your body will tell you what it needs and what it's lacking if you learn how to listen. So yes, with Western medicine, I've been prescribed several things, and after each episode, I've had to literally have pieces and parts of my body removed because of the chemicals that are used in it. It's just always been a part of me it's been in my mind, never take the elixirs, and that's what I follow. So natural process to me is so much easier.
It's interesting. I had an interview just the other day of a young lady that had issues in her body, went to numerous doctors, never could get any answers, but always got another pill. And after years, and she was a young teenager at the time, after years, she just took it upon herself to start learning how to listen to her body and to use more natural ways of approach. And now she's at 28 years old. She's vibrant, and guess what? She found a new career too. She moved into this kind of space as well. So that's interesting that you, along with many of my friends that I've met through LinkedIn and otherwise, have found their own stories of illnesses, et cetera, that have turned them around by going through their own learning process. So talk to us a little bit about how people should go about educating themselves.
Well, knowledge is power to me. So, and everybody's so different. It's like your fingerprints, we're all made up differently. So it's a process. This isn't something that happens overnight. It's not a long process. It's a process that takes however long it takes for you to take yourself through that. Does that make sense to you?
It does to me,
Does
yes.
that make sense?
I mean, I think we all have to come to that aha moment, where
Yes.
we go, something's got to change because everything I've been doing hasn't been working.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's very true when it comes to taking care of our own bodies.
Can I just tell you my story about the last Western medicine episode that I had?
Oh, absolutely. I want to hear all your stories, Lynn.
I appreciate you. So I was on Zantac. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that, but and I felt horrible all the time. Like I couldn't eat, I couldn't do anything for a year. I kept going to this doctor, and she wasn't even sure what was happening. We were just going through all these tests. And every time I would come back, she would say, "Lynn, there's nothing wrong with you." And I would say to her, "Yes, there is, because I've been dealing with this and this isn't me." She wanted me to take another Zantac on top of what I was taking, and that was actually the culprit. And I ended up losing my gallbladder.
Oh my goodness.
So it was me saying to her, "What tests haven't we done yet?" And she told me, and I asked her to please send me so that I can get this over with, because I just can't deal with this anymore. I was in a gentleman's office for 5 minutes and he diagnosed it. Done, got the gallbladder taken out, and it was all resolved. Of course, you're not the same because now you're missing your gallbladder, but you have to adjust. You just have to adjust.
Well, just so that we're in the same club. I had to lose my gallbladder several years ago. What I don't think it was because of any drug. I think it was just it finally gave up the ghost and was ready to be gone. But I have felt much better since
Yes.
taken out. So you and I were talking the other day, and I love this comment you say, "Don't take the elixirs. Listen to your body."
Yes.
But don't take the elixirs. And I really want to
Yeah.
expand on that a little bit, because
Okay.
we've all throughout, especially you and me being at our ages that we are now, we've been through enough life that we've experienced, here, take this yet again, another thing. And we just kind of fell into that trap, didn't we?
No, I'm not going to allow you, Bob, to put me in with your category, because I've learned very young
Well,
not to take the elixirs, but that's what life is about, right? It's all a learning process.
absolutely, absolutely. And I always, throughout my life, I always fought against that, but still fell into that trap.
Yes, but because you trusted your doctor. I mean, this is what you're programmed to do, is to follow what your physician says.
Yeah.
And they're also into the textbooks, which again, everybody's so different. And that textbook it's not me. I know who I am and I know what my body needs, and it's not going to be in a book.
Well, and I,
So anyway.
over time, I have learned a lot about my own self, and being able to listen a lot closer
Yeah.
to what my body is saying. And the other thing too is, I think we have to learn, when we're listening to our body, when we finally open up our minds and hearts and spirits to listen, the things that we hear, then we have to heed to them. So if my body's saying, slow down, take a break, rest your brain, whatever, instead of pushing through all the time. Like, I was taught very early on that fight through the pain, whatever that pain was, you fight through it. Well, sometimes that pain that's telling you something. And whether it's an emotional pain or a physical pain, it's telling us something. You know, in our conversation not long ago, you told me about a trip you took back in 2021. And I found that such a fascinating story about your trip and your, I call it a walkabout, like if you were in Australia. But
No, for sure. It was the best walkabout of my life, let me just tell you.
let's hear
Ending up
about
on,
that.
oh my, ending up on the Isle of Lewis in Scotland. My heart was just stuck. I mean, my soul kept telling me, you've got to go, you've got to go, you've got to go. And when I got there, Bob, it was just unbelievable. The 2.5 months that I got to stay there, I was literally within walking distance of those stones, and I could go whenever I wanted to. It was just fabulous. And I'm so grateful to Alistair for giving me that opportunity. Because if it wasn't for that young man who was so broken that wanted some help, I would have never had that opportunity. I wouldn't have.
Well, tell
And
us
he is no
about
longer with us.
tell us about this young person that you told me the story about, and how you all interacted with one another.
Okay, well, I met him in May, the first time I went in 2021 at the Stones. He was walking with it's not crutches, it's more like a cane or I can't even explain it. And then he had to have help with his knees because he was just so broken. He didn't understand that his way of thinking was what everybody else was putting into his head. He didn't know who he was anymore. He didn't know what his existence was, what his purpose was. And we got to fast track, of course, because I was there every day to help him walk through all of his anger and his angst and his anxiety, all of that. So I showed him what he needed to do in order to stop that overthinking of what the outside sources were putting into his head, because he knew it wasn't true. And then he could start regaining his own wisdom and his own confidence. And by the time I left 2.5 months later, he was walking up a hill 3 times with 75 pounds on his back in a backpack. And I was never so proud of this young man. He'd struggled his whole life.
My goodness. My goodness. So most of it, even though he had some physical challenges, most of it was in his head that he just had accepted
Yeah.
his state in life.
It's so hard. People, when you overthink, you keep beating yourself up, and that's so hard on your psyche. And his psyche was just almost diminished. So yes, it's your beliefs. We all need to rethink, to relearn, to relove ourselves, because what you believe isn't necessarily who you truly and really are.
Those are good words, Lynn. I really like that. So I'm interested.
Thank you.
What is the Stones on the Isle of Lewis? Is it a special place? Tell me about it.
To me, it's the most sacred site on this planet. It really is. I would rather not get into this because, and please don't add this, because what's been written is not what's true.
Well, I don't know
So
anything
it's a
about
sticky
it. That's why
subject.
I'm asking you.
Yes, well, to me, and please, again, don't put this in there, but the truth is, those standing stones, once upon a time, our ancestors were able to talk to one another telepathically, and that's what the stones were all about, was being able to talk, the father to talk to or the son to talk to the father, and so on and so forth. So that's all part of my soul. Those stones are part of my soul, and I had to go there in order to
I find that
do what I needed
fascinating.
to do.
And again, that was
My
part of,
existence is here for a reason.
yeah, that was part of a healing process too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That's where I came from right in the beginning. Those stones, whether you believe this or not, every soul on this planet right now has been reincarnated. We are all here for a purpose. And my purpose was to go there so that I could wake myself up and help the rest of the world see how difficult we're making it for ourselves. Because it really is what you're thinking is what's keeping you stuck. And so, yes, it was a very spiritual, heart lifting. I broke a lot of chains when I was there, a lot of chains.
Well, that's
And it was worth it. And
really exciting to hear that. That's really exciting to hear
when
that.
I would walk past this, yeah, thanks. When I would walk past this church, which wasn't very far from me, it's the Free Church of Scotland, and they would sing Gaelic. And I would just stand there at the side of the road, Bob, and tears would just run down my face. It was like, I have no idea what you're singing right now, but I'm so in love. And I started going to church there. And I hated it when I had to leave.
That is so neat. So just experiencing the place, the history that you knew, hearing the words, even though you didn't understand what they were being said, they permeated your soul. And they helped change. Yeah, they helped resonation. They helped change the hurt and the damage that you had been going through. That is such a neat story. So let's transition now into really what you do now and who you are and what you're about helping people. I know you offer coaching, life and health coach. I know you use different techniques. Can you maybe expand a little bit about what you do, what type of techniques you use, why you use those, and how you feel like those can help people with all these different challenges that they're coming through?
Sure. So I think we all really need to go back to the basics, Bob, of just kind of purging from your body your toxins, and not just from your body, but from your mind. So there's a lot of things that you have to go through first to start that cleansing process. So you're going to start with what you're drinking and what you're eating, how you're eating. It's not necessarily what you're eating, it's how you're eating it. And if you just learn the proper way for better digestion, once you start calming down your body, then everything else is going to follow. But you've got to start in your brain to stop that. You have to gain the awareness to learn or gain the consciousness to learn the awareness to stop yourself when you start going down that rabbit hole of overthinking, and then turn it back to a positive direction. So I'm going to help you just with the words by me listening and telling you where you need to step back and just take a minute and walk through it, understand the why, and then you can let go.
Okay.
So it's a process all the way through. You're going to learn some things that's going to help calm down the brain and help revive the body and your systems.
So you use different techniques and therapies to help people process through that.
It's all natural. Everything that I do is it's really a habit rethink.
Okay.
You're going to take your daily habits. I'm going to help you rethink them to help you get the optimum out of what it is that you're doing.
I was reading through your bio the other day, and one of the statements you made is your thoughts, feelings, and how you speak will also affect your body. 90% of the population have over 20,000 negative thoughts a day that are stuck in fear, doubt, worry, and self-sabotage. No wonder we've got problems in the world today, right?
It's the truth.
It's
Seriously.
the truth. It's the truth. You know, since I have met you and through the many conversations we've had, and we've gone so many different directions, we've chased rabbits down a lot of rabbit holes. But the one thing that I've enjoyed about our conversations, whether we agreed on everything or disagreed, we had a commonality that we were going to agree to disagree. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what I adore about you. That's just maturity. It's just maturity.
Well, and
we learn from one another. Isn't that what life is about? If you say something to me that resonates with me, I am going to go and research it because I think it's so important that you do that. So we're all here to learn on a daily basis. Everybody that walks the path is going to teach you a lesson of who you want to be or who you don't want to be.
I agree. And you know, I think, you know, even with and part of being a life coach and watching what's happened, especially around some of the tough times in our country over the past 4 or 5 years, we've forgotten how to communicate, whether we agree with one another or not. That really shouldn't be so much of an issue of, let's learn to communicate. We can communicate that we disagree. We can communicate that we agree. We can communicate we're neutral about any of that. Instead of being, it's got to be my decision has to be right, and you have to accept that.
Yes.
How do you help people process? Because I'm sure you've had people come into your practice that maybe have some really deep-seated things that they just can't let go of, or at least learn how to soften so that there can be more palatable conversations.
Well, it is a very tricky process, but you have to take it slow. It's like unpeeling an onion, right? So it's layer by layer by layer. So I have them just step back for a minute and put themselves in the other person's shoes, and then just keep adding to that layer so that they can actually understand the thought process of the person on the other side. And then a lot of times it's like, oh yeah, I never thought of it that way. It's just thinking outside yourself, really, because
Yeah.
we're putting our own emotions on whatever's happening, and really looking at the person's face and saying, am I hurting you when I'm saying something? Because it shows, but we
Yeah.
don't pay attention. We don't pay attention.
Well, in my life learning, one technique that I always learned in communicating with people was to mirror what they're doing, and to,
Yes.
like, if they were showing some form of posture, I would try to imitate the posture so that they could see themselves in me. And so, like, if we're being aggressive, for example, I might show some aggression in my body so they could get a look at it. And a lot of times that really helped. Is that some of the techniques you use in your practice?
Sometimes I've got to be really careful though, Bob, because some people just can't see. The irony is just right there. I it's amazing to me sometimes how people, don't like yelling to begin with, but when I see somebody yell at somebody else, and then later, just later, by chance, I will kind of throw it back just to, it's kind of like, here's a spoonful of sugar. How did that feel for a minute? Just how did it feel? And sometimes it still goes right over the head.
I,
They're
I
just so stuck.
I totally get that. I was a teacher for over 30 years, and for
Oh,
young
bless
people.
you.
I was a middle high school band director. So
Oh,
in a band room, it's pretty loud in there when they're playing and all that. So I had to always talk loud, just because big space, a lot of kids. But I found a technique that really worked well when I could not get their attention. I just quit talking. And
yeah.
I would just go basically neutral. I would just stop. I would get pan faced, and I would just stand there until it got quiet. And I hated to do it because I lost a lot of time, but it
Yeah.
finally started working because they started realizing, well, gosh, the guy can't hear us. And so I quit raising my voice, even though at times I needed to talk louder because the last row that was 30 or 40 feet away from me couldn't hear me in a normal voice. But I started figuring out that if I made it softer and made them have to do more listening, then we were going to get more accomplished. So that really worked well for me.
Yeah.
In one of our conversations, you talked about the bowls that you use, and I've never experienced
Yeah.
that, Lynn. And so I want you to explain that to me, and how you use that, and why it's become an important tool in your practice. And tell me I know there's a term for those. I'm sorry, I forgot it.
Oh, no worries. It's a sound bath. It's a crystal sound bath. And so I have 7 bowls that are focused on the 7 main chakras in your body. And the sound bath really, before I do the sound bath, I take everybody through a guided meditation, a pre-recorded guided meditation, because that's not who I am. I'm more about playing the bowls and just helping you relax. That's somebody else's job. So I'm going to let them focus on that. And then as I'm playing, it's actually like natural healing. And this is how our ancestors used to heal too, is through sound. We didn't have pills back then. They went and picked something off a tree if they felt bad, and they figured it all out. So now, I mean, natural is the way to go. And some of the things that I see after a sound bath, I've seen a range from crying to elation. It's just amazing.
Hmm.
And then just from listening, they kind of get that, and it's not from me, from listening to the pre-recorded meditation, they get that aha moment too, because she also helps you realize you're overthinking and what you're doing to yourself. So it's a great process, and it's fun for much.
I found that when we had that conversation not long ago, that being a music teacher, being someone that's immersed around sound basically 24/7, I never stopped to think about how the pitch, the different tonalities, from your perspective, from someone that's helping someone heal. Because, I'd have a band concert, for example, and it would be one of those nights that was just a miraculous night. Every note was played correctly, every rhythm was played correctly, and the emotion that the kids put into their playing really came together. And my body would change, my whole mentality would change when I would finish and get off the podium, and the accolades were over and all that, and we were on our way home. I was on this natural high. I was feeling so elated. And so I started thinking about what you had been telling me, going, that makes a lot of sense. To immerse yourself in surroundings that allow you to just free your mind, free your thoughts, and just enjoy. And then
Yes.
and listen to yourself, and getting back to nature, just hearing what's around you. This morning, before our get together, I went outside my front because it was still just dusk, or just dawn, and there's red hue in the background through a set of trees. And I just went out there and stood and looked at that and listened to the sounds. And it was birds chirping, and everybody's waking up. Everything's
Right.
and I couldn't wait for us to have a conversation, because I knew we were going to talk about things that brought us back to nature and all that. So I was excited about that, and I took a picture of it, so it's on my Facebook for you to go look at. But Lynn, I've really enjoyed getting to know you and want to continue our relationship. But for our listeners, how could they get a hold of you? Let's talk about a couple things that you could offer people with online connections, because this is going to go out all over the country. And I want people to be able to reach out to you, to use your services, to learn from you. So could you tell us how they could reach you, and maybe 2 or 3 things that you feel like that you could really give value to them?
Sure. So I have a website. It's LynMariesHouseOfShama.com. You can actually make appointments through my website for sound baths or for sessions. I also have a 90-day program that I can take you through. It's a really good course that helps the back to basics, teaching you about the breathing and the eating and the whatever it is that you need to do to help calm down your brain, to calm down the body. And I forgot, sorry, lost it.
So we've got your website. We've got how you can help them out. What do you want to share? Your phone number, a cell number, or a house number?
Sure. The phone number for the House of Shama is 517-732-1949.
All right. And one last thing, because we want to give the listeners something. What's one thing that you could tell our listeners today that they could do today to help themselves?
Oh my gosh. You know what my favorite thing to do is? All day, every day, even when I'm working, I don't care. I always have music on, and I cannot stop moving when the music is going. So just give it a go. Just turn it on, because something is going to happen where you just can't stop moving your body, and then it's going to become a habit and you can't help yourself. You just got to move. So
It
that's
makes
what I
us feel
say.
better,
Anything
doesn't
that
it?
brings you joy. Yes. Anything that brings you joy, put it in front of your face and put it in your ears and stop. I don't listen to the news. I don't watch the news. I have my own healthy boundaries, just because that's what I need for me. But if something is not bringing you joy, then please, by all means, whatever it takes, because if it's not helping you, it's hurting you, it needs to go. And start small. Start with small things. It's small steps that will get you bigger. And that's where your courage is going to grow from that. You're going to get rid of the fear. So make one small promise to yourself today that you know that you can keep, and make it a daily discipline, and then grow from there. That's what I have to say. And thank you everybody for listening. I so appreciate it.
Lynn, those are great words. And I've got something for you. You need to write a book. Okay. So I'm going to put a plug in your ear. This is Lynn
You're not the
Marie.
first one that said that.
Lynn Marie, every time we get on the phone or get on Zoom calls, you're always promoting uplifting positive thoughts to people. So Lynn Marie's values of thoughts. Lynn Marie's values of thoughts, or Lynn Marie's positive affirmations, or something of that nature, because the way you word them, the times that you've talked to me, they always were something that was uplifting. And I always walked away from my conversations just a little more lighthearted. So there you go.
Oh, I'm glad I've done my job. That's what my existence is all about, is to help people just lighten up and enjoy life, because it's really simple. We just make it so hard on ourselves.
Oh, there you go. So great words of wisdom from Lynn Marie today. This is Bob Priest with the Show of Life podcast. We've enjoyed having you with us today, Lynn, and we hope that our listeners will reach out to you for more information from you and check you out on the website that I will also post in the written portion of this podcast. Everyone out there in the podcast world, have a great day, and we look forward to talking to you in our next episode. Goodbye.